what do you think were those like connecting pieces of, you know, taking care of your health, yet also not being so strict and so obsessive that you're that person that nobody wants to hang out hang out with on a Friday night?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, there was no, like, real specific thing that I did or moment that I remember where it just, like, was more balanced. It took years for me to get to that, and I can think of a bunch of micro moments or maybe they felt macro in the moment, but for example, I was vegan, or plant-based. I know that kinda irks some vegans when people say, "I used to be vegan." Like, "Well, you're not vegan." So I was plant-based for 6 years, and I started eating animal proteins again 2 years ago, and that really helped. I mean, on a physiological level, it really helped me. It nourished my brain in ways that my brain was not being nourished, which just helped with everything. I mean, the way that I perceived my life and things going on in my life, it just helped with my perspective, my perception, and just literally how my brain was functioning.
Mm,
And it supported my nervous system. It supported my hormones and my menstrual cycle, and just helped to rebalance my body in ways that it really needed to be rebalanced
mm.
after so many years of being plant-based. So, that was, like, a really monumental moment for me, and, again, it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like, "Oh, I ate a bite of fish, and now all of a sudden I'm balanced." So, it really took, like, 6 to 12 months of really nourishing on a deep, deep cellular level, and that is a really, a standout pivotal moment in my life, especially in the last, handful of years that have really helped me to become more healthy, more balanced, and more neutral. And also to, stay on the topic of veganism, I I had identified so much with being vegan, and I really started to dissect that. Why am I so connected to a way of eating? And it was something that was very, very personal and internal because I didn't push veganism on anyone else. So that was another thing I started to like, I'm like a very smart, conscious woman. And over time, I've become more conscious and more grounded and more like stoic in ways and really kind of questioned my thoughts, my actions. I've questioned just humanity as a whole and why we're here. And so during that process I was just questioning, why am I so attached to something that clearly I don't believe in enough because I'm not promoting it to other people and I'm not pushing other people to be vegan. And I had my quirks, don't get me wrong. I mean, my boyfriend Braxton will tell people that when we first started dating, I told him, like, I didn't want him to cook meat in our house, or in we live together now, we didn't live together then. I was like, "I don't want meat to be cooked and on my pots and pans." And I was, because we from the very get-go, I've talked about, like, marriage and children. I was like, "I don't want our children to eat it." And then I was like, "Okay, maybe that's not true." So anyway, just, but beyond that, like, I didn't care that he ate meat. In fact, I wanted him to because I knew I was like, "You need it," you know? So anyway, I started to question, why am I so attached to veganism? Why am I so attached to I was a big runner for a long time, so it's like, why am I so attached to just running every single day? To In my head, if I didn't run that day, I was like I wasn't I wasn't productive.
Mm,
So I was so attached to different things that really didn't matter.
mhm.
And so I just started to question that. And it helped me to, again, getting outside of like veganism, getting outside of working out and running, really just apply that to different areas of my life. And, realize too that as humans, we should be really weary of identifying too much with one thing because as humans, we're constantly changing and evolving.
Mhm.
And especially as women, where we are really, really changing on a physiological level every single month throughout the month because of our hormones, because of our other biomarkers that are changing, our neurology, our physiology are all changing throughout our cycle. And we can get into men too about how y'all cycle on a 24-hour schedule, but still, we should be like paying attention to these rhythms and we shouldn't just identify with something so hardcore, whether it's veganism or it's being a carnivore or it's being keto or like all of these things. I just realized that people, I mean, humans, we need to identify to like relate to something, And people often go to the extremes with diet and exercise. It
Mm,
just seems to be, for whatever reason, like that's what we keep coming back to,
mm,
is how can we get so particular and so obsessive and have so much control over what we are doing to our bodies. It almost like, and I'm speaking more so from a perspective of my eating disorder, because again, I've been dealing with the strictness, obsessiveness for a long time, for more of my life than not. And it's like so many other crazy things are going on in our life that we don't have control over. What's like one or two things that we can control? It's our body, what we eat, and it goes on both ends. Like was in eating disorder recovery programs with people who anorexia and under eating wasn't their struggle. It was bulimia or it was overeating, right? And so anyway, I've realized that humans, it's a way to cope with everything else going on in our world. So anyway, I am not by any means saying like I'm this perfect, very balanced human being, but I know myself now. I know like, okay, when I get stressed or anxious, or when I feel like overwhelmed by the world, because the world is overwhelming, and we're realizing that more as we grow up and are adults, and we're not naive to everything like we were when we were kids. What is our initial response to cope with anxiety? Is it obsessively working out? Is it being super nitpicky over our food? And maybe it has nothing to do with stress and coping with anxiety. Maybe it's just, do you feel lost? Are you still searching for your purpose? And so you think that your purpose is like how you eat and like being really nitpicky about how you eat and how you work out? Because I just don't believe as humans that's what we're put on this earth to do. Again, we're constantly changing, we're constantly evolving. So I'm always weary, especially nowadays, because I've had my long, long experience with being so um, like gung ho, really all for something. I'm just very like, I try to be as balanced and as neutral as possible. So going back to
mm.
answering your question, I just know that as humans, we're constantly changing on like a micro and a macro level. So I always just kind of watch nowadays people on social media get so for like one way, whether it's eating or it's working out. I've seen so many people, whether they're practitioners or not, they're just like health influencers that are like, I am raw. Like, I only eat raw meat. I only eat raw eggs, like raw milk. Like, and if you don't, basically, you're a terrible person.
Yep,
And I'm like, I am happy that that works for you,
yep,
but that may not work for everyone. And also, you're putting yourself into this box because if in a year from now, 2 years from now, etc., if that's no longer working for you, all these people just know you for that. And humans, especially the ones who are still working on their internal healing, are going to be really upset with you if you stop doing that, because they're identifying with you doing something. So, anyway, that's a long way of answering your question, but it's just such a fascinating topic to me because I've been on both sides of it. And it's really interesting now because I have a lot of compassion for people who feel like they need to identify with something. I get it, right? I get like the fundamental, like human need to want to identify with something. And it's easier to do that than to be like balanced. But I mean, gosh, I don't know exactly how I found my way to where I am today, but I do feel very, very balanced. And just like, go with the flow is my mentality now, which is really nice. After so many years of forcing myself to do things, even if I didn't have the energy to do it.